everyone. Today about economy, communism, gold, silver, and why we, the Poles, are not afraid communism any longer. Let's break it down. So it's pretty interesting to me why so many people in Western world like or even love the idea of socialism or communism. Last election in New York, we know the outcome. And I often ask myself, why is that? Why so many people following this ideology? And I came to my conclusion that many people completely don't understand what really communism means. They vote for this leftist, far left or communist candidates because what they are saying resonates with crowd, with masses, right? They targeting very easily wealthy people. They blame them for your problems, for your struggling. And the idea that everything should be equal, it's so popular in the West. But let's dive deep a bit, just and debunked what is going on really. I had this privilege to remember communism. I was a kid. I was 9 and it was 1982. It was a martial law in Poland, and in my city it was a big riot against the communist regime. We lived on the 10th floor, so I had a good view what is going on. And I remember that 3 people were murdered, killed by communist militia. And afterwards, I went with my mom the next day to do some shopping. And we were crying because everywhere was gas spreaded day before. And first time in my life I felt really scary. I was really scary because I understood as a kid that is something wrong when people shoot to other people and kill them. I understood that the war in some sort extent is pretty bad. And therefore now we the Poles, we are very, very sensitive what is going on. It can be escalation, and the war in Ukraine. And we don't want to be thrown under the bus by the Western governments and betrayed, like in 1945, as we still remember that. We don't want to be a victim of the politicians who, from some reason, hate the Russians. And don't get me wrong, because I'm interested in history, and I knew very well what the Germans did to us, what the Russians did to us. We still remember very well that the Russians murdered 30,000 Polish officers, POW. But I don't hate the Germans. I don't hate the Russians. And I think the vast majority of Polish people, we don't have any problem with them. Why? Because we know that the hatred doesn't work. We want to live peacefully. We want just to work, raise our kids. I knew the Germans, the Russians, the Americans, and I don't have any problem with these very kind people. They never did anything wrong to me, any bad. So why, as a nation, we should support any war? And to be honest, we don't want to support it. We fully understand that communism didn't work, doesn't work, and will not work, because we experienced that. I experienced that as a kid. And this is from my perspective, the biggest problem of the Western societies, the people who are believing that communism or socialism is so great idea. You don't have a clue what are you talking about. Just an orange, not a big deal, right? The first time I held this kind of orange in my hand when I was 9. And the communism all the time leads to the poverty, to the seizure of your own properties by government, by communist government. You all the time are living in the kind of scarcity, You're all the time afraid. You never know what will happen the next day, because, the communist militia can come to your house and you will never see your family again. Now we see across the world, especially in Europe, that some governments implementing this idea